What is actually inside the sun? For thousands of years, people have been trying to find the answer to this question, but the problem is that it is almost impossible to get that close to the sun, because its temperature is so high that any ordinary spacecraft would be destroyed in an instant. However, on December 24, 2024, NASA demonstrated a feat that many scientists once thought was nearly impossible. A small spacecraft about the size of a car entered the sun's atmosphere directly, not near the sun, but inside the sun's outermost atmosphere. And at the time, it was traveling at a speed of about 690,000 kilometers per hour. That made it the fastest man-made object in human history. That speed would take, for example, 10 to 20 seconds to travel from Srinagar to Kanyakumari in India, and from Tutulia to Tekna in Bangladesh. That's so fast. When the spacecraft reached the sun, all communication suddenly stopped. Scientists did not know whether it was still working or had been destroyed by the sun's intense heat. But when the spacecraft sent signals again, it brought with it some information that it forced us to rethink many of our long-held ideas about the sun. Let's learn about that incredible mission today and what is actually inside the sun or in its atmosphere, and what exactly NASA found there that day. First, some basic facts about the sun. Let's know the characteristics. Most of us may think that the sun is dangerous only because of its intense heat. But the real danger is not inside the sun or on its surface. The main danger is in its outer atmosphere, the region called the corona. This corona is a huge region filled with plasma, it is spread out in space for millions of kilometers. And a strange thing is that while the temperature of the surface of the sun is 5,500 degrees Celsius, the temperature of the corona is 5 lakh to 1.7 lakh degrees Celsius, meaning the outer part is hundreds of times hotter than the inner part, which is a matter of great interest to scientists. It has long been a mystery because according to general rules, the temperature should decrease as you move away from the heat source, but in the case of the sun, the opposite happened, a mystery that scientists have named the coronal heating problem, and it is from this corona that the solar wind is born. Yay, charge. When this flow of charged particles hits Earth, it is so powerful that satellites, GPS, radio communications, and even the power system can be damaged. So understanding the sun is not just a simple science, it is a complex science. However, in the story of this mission today, it is important to know about a person before going, because the spacecraft that reached the sun was named after him, which is a very rare event in NASA history. In 1958, young solar physicist Eugene Parker claimed that a stream of charged particles was always coming from the sun. The flow came out, which he called the solar wind. However, many scientists rejected his idea. But just 2 years later, observations from that spacecraft proved that Parker was right. Later, he became one of the most important figures in solar science. So the sun, NASA's historic spacecraft that was sent into the atmosphere was named Parker Solar Probe. Parker was 91 years old at the time of launch and witnessed the journey of the spacecraft that bears his name. Before his death in 2022, he was able to see how the mission would learn about the sun. It changed our thinking forever. But the biggest challenge for NASA scientists to learn so much was how to build a spacecraft that could operate inside a star's atmosphere, where the temperatures on Park and solar probes soar as they approach the sun. It would reach about 1,400 degrees Celsius, which is hotter than lava. So to solve this problem, NASA created a special heat shield. But the interesting thing is that the heat shield that kept this 4.5-inch thick Parker Solar Probe alive was made of a special metal. It was not, rather it was made of carbon composites, and special carbon foam, which was able to withstand extreme heat and keep the spacecraft's equipment at almost room temperature. What is even more amazing is that even though the temperature of the corona is millions of degrees, the spacecraft did not burn. No, because temperature and heat are not the same thing. Although the corona is extremely hot, the density of particles there is very low. As a result, despite the extreme temperatures, the actual amount of heat falling on the spacecraft was very low. Also, the huge amount of energy generated while traveling at a speed of about 6,900,000 kilometers per hour. The spacecraft was built with flexible joints to handle the pressure. That is, it is not too stiff, can bend slightly, and does not break. When the Parker Solar Probe was launched in August 2018, it did not go directly towards the sun. Instead, using gravity, the spacecraft slowly moves closer to the sun. It flies past Venus 7 times in 6 years. Each time, its orbit gets smaller and it gets closer to the sun. During this time, the spacecraft collects several important data. Scientists found that the solar wind near the sun is more unstable than they thought. They also collected data for the first time from inside the sun's magnetic field, strange tigers, and massive solar explosions. The last time Venus flew by, it happened in November 2024. Then everyone was waiting for December 24th, the day this instrument would reach its closest to the sun. Then, on December 24th, 2024, scientists in the control room in Maryland were not celebrating the holiday. They were waiting for the crucial moment. However, on the day of its closest approach to the sun, the Parker Solar Probe entered a region where the sun's radiation made it almost impossible to send any radio signals. As a result, all communication with the spacecraft was lost. At that moment, the device was about 3.8 million miles from the surface of the sun, and the device was traveling at about 430,000 miles per hour. In comparison, even Mercury, the closest planet to the sun, has never been this close. There was no news of the device for 2 days after that. Finally, on December 26, a small radio signal reached the control room. It informed that the spacecraft was still operational and everything was working normally. The scientists and engineers were delighted to receive that signal. Then, in early January 2025, the Parker Solar Probe collected data and sent it back to Earth. It began to arrive, and that's when scientists got the chance to see the sun's corona from the inside for the first time. The spacecraft's camera captured live footage of how the solar wind is created. Scientists saw how the plasma stream exited the corona and spread out into space. Eventually, it is approaching Earth. As a result, we understand more clearly than ever how the sun's weather is formed. Parker also observed a phenomenon that had previously only been theoretically predicted. It is seen that all the components of a huge explosion of the sun or coronal mass ejection are thrown into space. It is not lost. Some of it is returned to the sun by the sun's magnetic field. This information helps scientists understand why some solar storms are much more powerful than others. More importantly, Parker's data suggest that long-term coronal heating, the problem also hinted at a solution to the mystery. Scientists now understand that a special type of change in the sun's magnetic field could be one of the reasons why the corona region is hotter than the sun's surface by millions of degrees. The answer to this nearly 80-year-old mystery may have been found then. Scientists understood. Since 2025, Parker has been flying close to the sun and collecting data, and this information is not only advancing science but also helping to make the future of Earth safer. If a major solar storm approaches Earth today, typically you get an early warning message within minutes to hours. But using the data collected by Parker, it may be possible to predict such storms a few days in advance in the future, and that would make it much easier to protect satellite communication systems and electrical infrastructure. On December 24th, 2024, a man-made spacecraft entered the atmosphere of a star for the first time. It survived an environment where ordinary matter would melt in an instant. It traveled at the fastest speed in history, collecting data that has already been collected by the sun, has begun to change many of our ideas about the sun. For thousands of years, people have only seen the sun from afar. They have respected its power, they have been curious about its mysteries, and today we are starting to get answers to those mysteries. But this may be just the beginning, because the Parker Solar Probe the sun is being observed. And in the future, more new discoveries may come to us. If in the future humans can create technology that is capable of penetrating deeper into the sun, then according to your curiosity, the whole world will be surprised if any information comes to light. Your opinion, you can tell us in the comment box. If you like today's video, you can like it, you can subscribe to the channel, then see you in the next new episode. Thank you.